So don't be deceived. If you're a Christian, if you have the Spirit of Jesus in you, you love the truth. You don't love lies. It might be very foreign to you to realize that there's people out there who love lies like we love the truth. It's very weird. But listen, be wise as a serpent, and sometimes that means you got to know what evil is in order to avoid the pitfalls of it. When the election was happening, I was all focused on who is lying and who is telling the truth, and I thought, this one group over here is definitely lying, and this other group over here is kind of lying, and let's cast our votes. And when that was all over, I realized, you know what? It's not about Democrat versus Republican, I thought. It's about globalists. It's about the system versus people who love freedom. And that's what it's really all about. And so after the election was completed, then another thought came to me. It's not really about globalists, because it's not about mainstream media versus alternative media. Look, the alternative media is practicing techniques of propaganda. They just sensationalize until, and they say, this is completely urgent. You won't believe the shocking shock that you're going to be shocked with when you read this article about this alternative news. So then I see, the devil is playing both sides to keep you preoccupied in a web of confusion. And you think, well, of what benefit is it to have, say, a false flag? And then think about a football game, and you've got both teams lined up on the scrimmage line, and the offense is sending out these, numbers and shouting things and trying to get the other guys to jump the gun. It's like Boy Who Cried Wolf. The devil is trying to get us to be numb so that when the real event happens that the Bible predicts, then we will miss it. That's his agenda. He does not want anybody to understand the truth. That's the only thing he can do right now. He can only get people to use their free will to send themselves to hell by not seeing the truth, by loving lies. And people make their own free will choice, of course, but that's the only power that the devil has right now. So then you look at, okay, mainstream media versus alternative media. Both of these are using propaganda techniques to keep me preoccupied. And you think, how far down the rabbit hole does this conspiracy theory go? Where does it stop? And then you realize this is all a distraction to keep you from Jesus. And then you realize, I've finally found the truth. It's all about Jesus. And yes, it is, but watch out. Because there are even people within the church, even well-meaning people, who will deceive you, who will use propaganda, who will sensationalize so that you are caught up in the cult of personality about somebody who talks about Jesus. Now, take this test. Go to any church in America and, like a 5-year-old, count the number of times you see the name Jesus on the billboard, on the front of the building, in the hymn books, wherever it is. Count. Do you see Jesus more, or do you see the pastor's name more? Do you see the elders? Do you see all the great works they've done? What advertising are you getting at that church? Go to the biggest church in your town and do the same thing. You might be shocked to find out that Jesus is actually nowhere to be found. They do all these things and programs, but where is the name of Jesus? And you realize even this is a big conspiracy. Even this is a web of lies. The age of the church age has been ordained by God, and it has been put there for the sole purpose of getting the gospel out to everybody. That's what it is. And fellowship. That's what it is. But the church is not, churches and organizations, I should say, church organizations are not exempt from being corrupt. Just because they're a church does not mean that they're not corrupt. And just because they're corrupt does not mean that they have not spread the gospel. So if anybody measures the success of their church on how much have I spoken the word, well, sure, that's the measure of success. But if they think that that precludes them from having been corrupt, they are incorrect. And Paul even says, hey, let these people preach the gospel, because at least the gospel is being preached. So if they're going to charge money for it or whatever, just let it happen. Let it go. Because the prime directive here for Christians is to preach the gospel. So if you're caught up in a cult of personality about Jesus, where you're listening to a mediator who is a man, a human, get out of that. If you don't understand the Bible, you can go to people and listen to that, but ask God for wisdom, and He'll give you wisdom to understand the Bible. If you're going to a church and you're like, man, something's not right here, I think you should speak up about it. And I think you should say, here's the absolute truth as I know it, and over here, this is not the truth. Don't be deceived anywhere. God bless you. Goodbye.